Welcome to Brand on the Rocks, where we take bold ideas and distill them into clear messaging straight up. For years, I felt like a podcast was something that I needed to do, and so I'm finally going to dive in and just commit to this thing. And so my goal is with the podcast really to help you as a business owner, as a brand manager, as someone who is maybe on the consulting side and trying to develop how you show up online, is to help you take the complex parts of what you do on a regular basis, the complex parts of your business that sometimes get lost in the shuffle as you're trying to explain them to potential clients, you're trying to talk about them at meetups, and reduce those things down to their core messages, the things that make it so clear and simple that anyone can remember them. Really, that they become high proof. And it's the kind of message then that is easy for customers, potential customers, to carry with them, to remember, so that your brand excels. There are going to be three types of really shows that we're going to do. The first one's going to be what we call straight up. And that essentially is just solo episodes with me, where I'm going to share some tips and strategies that you can put to work really immediately. Just stuff that you can be really practical with in your brand or your business. There's going to be some shared pours, and those are going to be some candid conversations with friends and other people in the industry who have experience building brands that are memorable, that are thriving, that are growing. So you're going to hear from entrepreneurs and marketers and people who are really actually doing the work, not just talking about it from stages. And then we're going to have ones really that we call on the rocks. And essentially that's going to be some real world reviews, some audits of existing campaigns, breakdowns of websites, really, and campaigns and messaging to show you, what is working, what doesn't, and how to fix it in your business. Because there's nothing like knowing something's broken, but not knowing where to start. So a whole goal of Brand on Your Rocks is to help you as a business leader to get started, to fix, to advance your marketing so that your business isn't the best hidden story, but it's the best told story. So today, as we kick off with episode 1, this is going to be a straight up pour. It's just going to be me and the mic. I'm going to share a little of the foundational stuff that I start with businesses. And in this episode, I'm going to break down clarity and why really it's not just a buzzword. I know it's a word we hear a lot online, but it's a plan to help your brand stand out. It's going to help you get more clicks, more calls, more potential customers in your pipeline so that you can do business and thrive. So if you're ready, we're going to kick this thing off with episode 1. So there's some interesting things. Maybe let's start with this. Have you ever had a stellar sales or service experience? One of those that you walk away and go, that was so dramatically different that I need to remember that. And I may actually need to break it down and think through what made it so amazing. We had one of those. Our family did. For years, we had an insurance agent who was absolutely amazing. He was the kind of guy who was dependable. He helped when you called. If he didn't know the answer, he would find somebody who knew the answer. He was going above and beyond. He was solution motivated. And at the end of the day, his entire team had a culture about being client first. And what it did for us was it made every time you had to pick up the phone and that dreaded, oh, I need to call my agent again, there's something going on. It didn't feel that way. You actually were encouraged because I hung up the phone knowing, hey, it's going to be all right. We're going to find a solution for this. He was the kind of guy that we referred people to, like it was the experience you want when it comes to service. And there came a time when he got a securities license and he sold his book of business to another agent, or rather, Farmers gave his book to another agent. And the guy who got his agent's book could not have been more on the opposite direction. He was probably, I would say, no exaggeration, the worst agent I've worked with in any industry in the last 40 years. Was not helpful, was slow to respond, treated you like you were the issue, and helping you get answers was the last thing that was important. Oftentimes led with, that's not how we do things. And the experience was so bad that it made me think about what was the difference in these two brands. What was the product was the exact same. But what was it about the experience that we had with, in this case, the agent, that made it stand out for one and be so horrible for the other? The interesting part about it is that within 1 year, 50% of the book had moved to another agent because the experience was so bad. And it makes me think about a lot of the businesses and brands that I talk to that send me messages that are at conferences, as we're thinking about what is it about what we offer. Because a lot of times we have products and services that frankly are similar to what others have. And it's not always that it's just the things we can actually deliver to them, because in this case, they're both agents. They're both selling the same kind of stuff. But what made them different, what made the brand stand out, was the experience with them. And it started with impressions. And the reality is that impressions really matter. Whether you're online, you're in person, there's, first impressions, that there's those statements where, people say in the first few seconds you walk up to someone and meet them, you have an initial impression. And oftentimes that's the one you're going to go with, whether it's a true impression or not. And without a positive first impression, it's going to be an uphill climb for most businesses to get past it. And so it's our responsibility as business owners, as brand managers, to leave the best first impression that we can. And that really starts with the need for clarity. And I'm finding, as I've served brands for 20 plus years now, that clarity is challenging. A lot of times we say, oh, that's just something that, it's a buzzword we just talk about. But really, clarity comes down to being able to know what you're amazing at doing and delivering as a product or service, and then being able to turn around and talk about it in a way that's engaging and helpful. I had the one agent who was amazing at that, and I had one agent who was horrible at it. Same product or service. But that experience marked who got our business. And I think a lot of brands, your brand maybe, you have the same kind of opportunity. Because whenever we are not clear about the products and services, how we best can help people, we leave a gap. And in the absence of a clear story, it allows someone else to write the narrative for you. And the unfortunate thing is that the narrative that they come up with in their head is not always the narrative that is accurate, or the one that you probably actually want shared publicly. My guess is that if I went to that second agent and said, how do you feel like you served us? He would say, we did a good job. I would look at it and say 50% of your book said otherwise. And so the reality is that the message was not clear enough from him to actually write a new narrative for us. So we've got to be incredibly clear as business owners about who we are, what we do. And the interesting thing is that really the majority of people that I serve, I end up serving a lot of people who have, they are amazing at what they do. They are oftentimes top tier products, meaning in their service line, they're at the top of the class. And while they are amazing at providing that product or service, at actually showing up and meeting the needs of customers and clients, they're Struggle is usually in talking about it in a way that doesn't sound like they're in really just sharing out of authority. Like they struggle to make it simple enough that anybody on the other side can understand who and what they are. And so, really, one of the things that I've developed is a set of questions. And these questions are really meant to be a filter to get us started and really to give us a way for um, us as a business owner, a business leader, to begin to think about how we position ourselves. What is the story that we're going to share? What does it need to take into account so that the person we are actually in front of understands who we are, what we do, what we have to offer them? Because the reality is that our competitive advantage, yours as a business owner, is not the tasks that you do. But unfortunately, we tend to lead with, here's all the things I can do for you. Yay. And the reality is, the person who needs our help, they want to know what we can do for them. But it's the tasks, the outcomes that we provide for them that are really going to make the difference in their business. Same product or service, two agents, very different outcomes, very different experiences when we had challenges and needed to deal with our insurance. So as entrepreneurs, we tend to spend our days focusing on the tasks. So we tend then, when we think about our marketing, when we think about the story we're going to share, to focus on talking about the tasks that we can do for people. But our life is not an Asana to-do list. It is not a Slack channel list of things that have got to be accomplished. Our business and our life is getting in front of the right people and letting them know how we can make their life better and solve a problem for them. And that comes down to talking about the outcomes, because people don't buy our products or services. They're really, at the end of the day, buying outcomes. They're buying what happens when I use this product or service. I needed insurance. What I bought was a simple process from a helpful agent who had really my best in mind. And I know that he had my best in mind because he continued to prove that over and over and over. When I needed a computer, what I bought was an Apple, because I knew from past experience, dating even back to elementary school, what to expect from that type of computer experience. I used Windows. I compared the two. I made a decision. So in my business, one of the things that I have done for people is help them with messaging and help them figure out how to tell their story through a website. And the problem is, a lot of other people do the same thing. There are tons of people who do websites. There are tons of people who can help you with content and copy for a website. But that's not really, at the end of the day, the product, or it's not really the outcome that I provide for them. The outcome is that I help them have a clear enough message that is shared on that website so that visitors stay longer than the 3 to 5 second average, and that they actually take action and they get leads and phone calls. So part of our story, or crafting clarity in our brand, is figuring out, what is the most important thing I need to be talking about? How can I talk about it with intentionality? How can I connect it emotionally to the person I'm in front of? And then how can I get them to take action? And so I've come up with these 4 questions that really are a starting place for brands. And I'm going to read them to you, and you're going to hear them and think, that is ridiculously simple. And I understand that it is. In fact, in some ways, it's almost embarrassing that it's this simple. But I can tell you, after having shared this time after time after time with people that these statements, if you will take them to heart, will help you think about your business at different levels so that you can begin to craft a clear story that will make you memorable, so that you have the front of mind awareness on the person who may not need your product today, but 3 weeks from now, when someone says, I was trying to solve this problem, you go, I know who can do that for them. I know who to call, because you remember this brand story enough. It was clear enough that you know, hey, they can help you. So the very first one, and I'll actually make a link, because there's a PDF tied to this that has them and room for you to fill it out and even to kind of apply it and go to next steps. But statement number one, I think about this as your brand positioning core story, really the beginning of you getting clarity on your story is this. You're going to think about your audience, and I want you to describe your ideal audience at the moment that they need your help. Okay, describe your ideal audience at the moment they need your help. I want you to think about where their current life stage, what are they feeling, what are their job needs, what are their struggles, what are their life transitions. Think about the person you best serve, the person who, when they come through the door, when they call you, you actually get excited to help this kind of person. Not the ones on the margins that you're like, yeah, we'll take your money. The ones that you are excited about being able to serve. And I want you to think about, how would I best describe them? What is going on in their life? What are the things, the attributes about them that make them unique? You might even note what it is that you love about those pieces of them, because it best fits with you. So that's number one. Number two is, we want to dig into the problem you solve. What is the top problem that ideal audience person is facing in their life as a whole? Not connected to you. Like, what problem are they actually facing that keeps having them call you, that keeps making them fill out a form, that has them Googling or using voice chat to find answers? What are they trying to find a solution to? What is that big problem? And be specific and be empathetic about it. Like, what, if I put myself in their shoes, what am I feeling, or what's the emotion in my chest? What is the frustration? What argument did I just have with my business partner because we have this problem? What tension was at home because this was going on in our life, in our marriage, in our home? The third one is, I want you to think about your unique solution. What solution do you provide to help? How is it that you step into this problem and actually solve it? What do you physically do, or what do you provide to help them overcome this challenge? And I want you to not just say, we have X product. Like, what do you actually do to help? Okay? It isn't that you just sell them a widget. You do something more. What solution do you provide to them? Hey, it's this. We have this that helps them in these ways, because it's going to solve that. So what solution do you provide to help? Hey, how are you essentially helping them overcome this challenge in their life? And then the fourth thing I want you to think about is, what does success look like for your customer? When they have this problem, you provide your unique solution. What's the win on the other side? How does your solution help them to win? How does it help them to engage, make their life better, their business better, their whatever it is that you solve? Detail that out. Write some info that is super specific about really that win that they're getting, the benefit that they walk away with. So those four things, okay? Your ideal audience, the top problem, solution you provide, what success and a win looks like. If you'll take some time and mark those out, and as I mentioned, I'll put a link in the show notes. Super easy PDF you can print up and walk through this. Okay. I want you to do that, and then I want you to go back to your answers and review them. And I want you to think for just a few moments strategically and say, if I had to look at my response to each of these, what is the big idea in each section? What is, if I could synthesize it down, if I could get it into a few short statements, how do I best describe that audience? Circle it. How do I best articulate the problem? How do I best articulate our solution and the win that we provide? Because when you can do that, it helps you, because you know the full breadth as the business owner, as the brand manager of all the things you do. There's this idea known as the curse of knowledge, and that's essentially that we tend to talk to others at our level of understanding about our products, solutions, options. The problem is most of the people we're talking to aren't living at 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They have a problem that they need to solve today, and they have minimal understanding of what the options are. And we've got to find a way to bridge that gap with clarity so we can speak to this person whose knowledge and understanding is lower about it, but they still need a solution that actually helps. So start thinking about then, what is the big idea in each of these sections? Because if you can get your audience description down to a short phrase or two, you can get the problem down to a short phrase, the solution down to a short phrase, the win you provide to a short phrase, then all of a sudden it allows you as the business owner, as a consultant, to not be thinking about, I have a paragraph's worth of information about who I serve and how we serve them and all these. You're thinking in content blocks. You're thinking in little short pieces that are almost like Mad Libs in some ways, because you can say, oh, when someone says, tell me what you do, you say, well, there are these people who have this problem. Maybe you know someone with that problem. We have a solution that helps them in this way so that their life is better with this win. And all of a sudden you aren't then trying to share the entirety of your sales document. You aren't trying to share in 5 seconds what took you on the landing sales page, 4 paragraphs. You're condensing it down, distilling it down to its most important piece. Now, if they ask questions, then you expand. Then your story grows. But the reality of telling a story is that some version of your 10-minute story could be shared in 5 minutes. It could be shared in 2 minutes. It could be shared in 15 seconds. And most of the time in our businesses, our first impression, the impression that people are going to remember, is that 15 to 30 second one. That's what's going to get them thinking about your business or brand and really going, oh, do I think they could solve the problem for me? And if they have questions, then you give them the 3-minute version, the 5-minute version. So if you grab the download that I've got, you'll have these prompts, these questions, but there also is a content creation recipe page. And essentially that I kind of already alluded to Mad Libs, but essentially it's an opportunity for you to start thinking through, what if I thought about sharing my story more succinctly? What if I thought about sharing the very first pieces of my business in a more compact way? So that when I go to a meetup and someone says, tell me what you do, your story is 15 to 30 seconds, but it's so clear that they go, I get it. That when you load the top first section of your website and someone reads the 2 lines at the top before they ever scroll, that they read it and go, I need to keep reading, because it is that clear, that succinct. They understand, hey, I'm in the right place. They understand the problem I have and they have a solution to help me solve it. So take some time, ask yourself those 4 questions. Process through what is the big idea of each of them? How can I think about it? And what can I do with it? And then take some time, put it into the document and kind of process through how could I actually make these part of the story that I share as part of the words that I'm actually putting out there into the world. Like, is there a way that this could simplify and clarify the message that I speak each day as I'm talking about my business, each day as I'm having calls, as I'm showing up to in-person meetings, that you find the clarity to be able to share your story in succinct ways, because that is what's going to make you memorable. Most brands are forgettable, and they're forgettable not because they aren't amazing at what they're doing, but because the explanation of what they're doing takes so long that people don't stay with them. You have seconds to make a first impression. You have seconds to keep a business who needs your services, a individual who needs your services, connected to you. Because you don't want the challenge that I had with those insurance agents. Same product, very different experience, very different story being told about each of them. Because one of them clearly understood how to talk about what he provided in the win, and the other couldn't even clearly talk about the products and services he offered, and it showed. So that is my challenge to you today. That's part of what we're going to talk through as we dive into these shows, the solo episodes, the shared episodes, the audits and reviews on this podcast, on Brand on the Rocks, because I love seeing brands excel, especially brands who are doing amazing things, who the challenge is not whether they're providing a great product or service, it's whether they are sharing the story clearly enough that people know they have a great product and service. So this is today's straight up pour on Brand on the Rocks. And if this helps you get some clarity, I'd love it if you'd share with some friends. Until next time, keep your ideas bold, your message clear. Straight up.